Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope everybody's doing fantastic out there. Wow, we've been talking a lot of basketball whales, obviously, on this channel, but a football whale seems like he is now out in the open sea. And to be fair, as much as he is criticized and as much as he is laughed at because he says some dumb stuff, Chris Grier has been a pretty good whale getter. He is good at getting the superstar. And I saw this news today, and I was like, that's so obviously going to be the Dolphins move. And I'm here for it. You know me. I like big names. I like big stars. I don't know if it's the most responsible thing to do, but I also don't think it's completely stupid either, just because of where the Dolphins are at. But if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, Myles Garrett, the all-time pass rusher from the Cleveland Browns, today put out a statement that said he is requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. And I can't blame him. I mean, obviously the Browns are in a terrible position with linking up to Deshaun Watson. He has had to deal with a ton of quarterback changeover for many, many years. And who's not going to want this guy, right? Now, I saw the report saying that the Cleveland Browns aren't going to entertain offers for him, but they do have to make a decision soon on it, would appear. It looks based on his contract like they have to decide on his option bonus pretty soon. It looks like, according to Sport Track, on the 5th league year day. So that's, coming around the bend soon. I'm curious to see what the Browns will, what they would entertain, what they would want in the midst of this. If this is something that could be, somebody could pounce on quick. But it looks so up Chris Grier's alley that it's almost too obvious because, first of all, it's like Myles Garrett going from Cleveland to a glamour city. It's like immediately, boom, where are you going to think of going? You're going to go to Miami. Now, to be fair, are the Miami Dolphins looked upon if he wants to go to an absolute contender? Are the Miami Dolphins absolutely that? No. I'm not going to sit here and bull bleep everybody and be like, hey, this is the obvious places you want to go. But it is a change of pace from Cleveland. We can all recognize that. And if you were going to look for the back half, one last big contract place that you wanted to play, obviously this place attracts a lot of people, as it did with Tyreek Hill. And this guy, is an absolute monstrosity, the pinnacle of consistency, never misses games, gets a bunch of sacks. While also being on this fold of like, hey, you're adding like a perennial star to your front lines. Mike McDaniel has said he can never have enough pass rush help. And I just feel like if you're Chris Grier and you feel the heat on you like you do, is his bag to go and take it and draft somebody? It probably should be. And look, he hit a home run, it seems like, last year with Chop Robinson. You do have Jalen Phillips coming back, but it is a guy that's off 2 injuries now. So I don't know what you want to believe in with that. Bradley Chubb, same thing. Is there some kind of way where the Dolphins could swing a Bradley Chubb for Myles Garrett on top of whatever the big draft sweetener has to be? Let's say the number 13 pick and a second, or a first this year, a second next year. I'm not going to get in the realm. Do I think the Dolphins should give up 2 first-round picks, 3 first-round picks for Myles Garrett? Absolutely not. I think that'd be pretty crazy to do something like that. But, it does seem like those days of like giving up so many first-round picks for a guy like that, is that likely? I don't know. I mean, he is getting to the other side of 30 here, even though he looks like an absolute specimen that is never going to age or ever deteriorate. I just feel like with Chris Grier, and you're sitting here and you got a hot pressure situation, right? You're like, man, I got to think this is probably my last stand if I don't win a playoff game this year. For sure, this has to be the year where he's going to get fired. Although maybe with him, he's so Teflon, he never fears that. But your comfort zone, Chris Grier's comfort zone, has become taking the home run swing and going and getting somebody of this ilk. The other thing that's interesting about it with the Miami Dolphins is, you have that mid-first round pick, so it's not like you're giving up some top-of-the-tier line guy, and some top-tier pick where it's like, this is really like, how could you give up something like that? And you always seem to have Mike McDaniel flirting with elite pass rushers. Like we've seen him hobnobbing with Max Crosby. We've seen him joking around with Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa saying, this South Florida's pretty good. Want to get back home. So for me, I'm looking at all this and I'm like, all right, you have Chop Robinson, and Chop Robinson looks like he's going to be an absolute stud. Can they absolutely trust Jalen Phillips to be back? If Jalen Phillips is back, I almost feel like that's a cherry on top. But you would like to have somebody to really fortify it alongside Zach Sealer. You're probably going to lose Calais Campbell, so you do need something there that would seemingly be a big boost to this offense and give you more of an intimidation factor to really be a known game wrecker. So I'm curious about it. I wonder if this is something the Miami Dolphins will entertain. One thing that does seem like they are going to entertain, though, Adam Schefter reports that the Miami Dolphins are apparently in the mix, or could be in the mix, for Marcus Mariota as a backup quarterback, which I know is something that we're all looking at and being like, oh, they got to have somebody reliable. Like, this cannot be another year. One thing that really shocked me about this, actually looking at this, I was like, Marcus Mariota is only 31 years old. I was like, I could have, like, when they said Marcus Mariota, I'm like, is he 40? Like, how old is Marcus Mariota? Marcus Mariota is only 31 years old. Backup this year with the Washington Commanders. A couple of games of duty this year for Jaden Daniels when he was banged up. 4 touchdowns, no picks. I believe he rushed for another in the midst of that as well. So the big caveat here, and the big thing that's interesting here, is relationship with Tua Tagovailoa. So maybe the Dolphins stay tax, comfortable quarterback room, maybe feel like they could get him at somewhat of a discount. Putting him in a good situation like that, has not been a guy who is looked upon as like, this guy was once the number 2 overall pick, faced the Tennessee Titans, didn't really work out with the Raiders. He was hurt all the time. We saw on quarterback him being on the outs with the Atlanta Falcons. So yeah, this is not like some great shakes, but then like, what are your other options out there from a veteran presence? If you have a comfort level with the starting QB with Tua, who the Dolphins put out a beautiful montage today of, and then you're thinking to yourself, and then you draft a young guy. Honestly, it probably will end up being like a Hawaiian trio, because if you think about it, you got Tua, maybe bring in Marcus Mariota, who also apparently, like the other word from Schefter is, could end up with the Raiders again. Knows Chip Kelly, obviously, so they could be vying for his services as well. But then you think about the Dolphins, like if they're going to take a flyer on somebody at some late rounds, maybe they look at somebody like Dylan Gabriel, right? That was reported that they had talked to the Oregon Ducks quarterback. So then you got an Oregon tie, you got a lefty Hawaiian tie, everybody kind of together. You have a harmonious quarterback room there, and somebody who's probably a little bit later of a prospect. Not maybe somebody who's going to be like thought of as this boom is going to be an amazing player. But I don't know how many picks the Dolphins want to go in to take a bite at that apple of like somebody. Like even if the Dolphins, like Jackson Dart, were to fall into the middle of the second round, everybody's saying he's skyrocketing up. Can you risk that on somebody you don't know is going to be good, especially when you know you got to fortify some things on the offensive line? And I know I'm saying this minutes after saying, hey, go trade the 13th pick for Myles Garrett. But if they don't, which, it's probably unlikely that they will because of two things. One, they do have other needs. They can talk themselves into Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips coming back. And then they also, of course, have to fix the other side of the trenches because you're not bringing Liam Eichenberg back unless he's like playing for dollar store rate. And you got to figure something out with the other guard spot as well. Like your guard spots have to be fixed. They have to be fixed. I think everybody recognizes this. You're seeing like all these mock drafts and they're having the Dolphins take safety. I'm not saying the Dolphins don't need a safety, but I am saying, dude, out of everything, they need to fortify that offensive line. Has to be fixed. You're already probably going into this year with Teron Armstead retiring, a rookie starting at right tackle and injured, Austin Jackson coming back, hopefully being right. You feel good about Aaron Brewer. You have to fortify those two guard spots. So I just think like the idea of you're finding your quarterback in the middle of the second round, for me, I'm skeptical on that. I feel like that's got to go beefy. You got to go. You need to go beef. If you got actual players there that you like, that seems to be the obvious. Like, you don't have to reach for it. Obviously, like, don't pick the wrong guy. And maybe this is not the guy to trust to do it. To be honest with you, maybe there'll be some viable backup option or somebody who gets cut loose that they think could fix something else. But quarterback, yeah, I'm not. I think my thought on it is this build is going to live or die with Tua Tagovailoa and how good he is and how healthy he can stay. I know that people have already made up your minds about it. I don't need the comments about whether you think he's that or not, because if you don't think that he is, nothing I'm going to say is going to change your mind anyway. But let's just talk about what the build for what it is right now. They invested in him. He's going to be their quarterback at least next year. And if he doesn't work out, the coach will probably not be here because he's a Tua guy. They're probably just going to go blow it up again. Like, it just feels like if it's not going to work like this and they're not going to make the adjustments they need, then it's going to go in a complete different direction, probably with new people making the decisions. One would think. So I don't necessarily know if that's like, hey, we like Tua, but we're gonna take a flyer on this rookie in the backup spot, and maybe that'll end up being our guy. I don't know, man. Crazier things have happened, and we'll see what happens when it gets to that day. Hell, we just saw Luka Doncic get traded overnight, so everybody's got to free their mind to everything. But for the Dolphins standpoint, filling that spot with somebody like Marcus Mariota, who does have the relationship with Tua. And now you know that you're going to have some consistency there because Darrell Bevell's not going anywhere. Chip Kelly's getting uber amounts of money to go take over the OC job in Las Vegas. Perhaps this is the best solution you can have for what's going to be pretty much the pivot point season for this Dolphins team. But I'll tell you, man, the idea of the Dolphins trading for Myles Garrett is like, that's so up Chris Grier's alley. Like, you could already smell it from Dolphins land of like, stars out there. Like, I will say, like, Chris Grier is a bit like, he GMs like I would GM. And it's just like, injuries be damned. I like big stars. And really is the thing that gets everybody back in his good graces, where he goes, guys, I know you didn't like how I drafted Noah Benogany, but I got you the cheetah. I'm like, all right, Chris Grier. And you're like, guys, I'm sorry I whiffed and I stuck you guys with Liam Eichenberg. But I got you Jalen Ramsey. Get over here, Chris Grier, you sly dog, you. That's kind of his big thing. It's like, get over here, you big lug. Like, what do you guys? Guys, I'm really sorry about that Cam Smith thing. It's like, yeah, you really suck at that, dude. I'm really sorry I made the whole comment about the offensive line. But, and you're like, hmm? Traded for Myles Garrett. Ooh, I'm like, you did it again, Chris. So this is how he kind of just gets the stink off of him for a little bit. And is it likely? No. But if anybody was going to pull it off and knows, like, as soon as Chris Grier saw a requested trade, he was like poking his head out like a meerkat and was like, huh? And looking to see how he could make this happen, because it'll make Stephen Ross likes stars. Miami likes stars. Myles Garrett, you would love Miami. I mean, hey, come on down here. And then we're going to be like, Chris Grier, you're going to, we forget about that whole Eichenberg thing, dude.